Hey, it's great to have you back on Tuesday as we continue in our how-to devotions. We're starting a brand new round of lesson today called How to Avoid Arguments. How to avoid arguments. Let me read to you from James chapter 4, verses 1 to 10. What is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is it not your pleasures that wage war among your members? You lust and you do not have, and so you commit murder. You're envious and cannot attain, so you fight and you quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask, and you ask and do not receive because you ask for the wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. You adulteresses, meaning spiritual adulterers, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world must make himself at times an enemy of God. Or do you think that the Scriptures speak to no purpose? He jealously desires the Spirit which He has made to dwell in us, but He gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, but He gives grace unto the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God, and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and He'll draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be miserable and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning, and your joy be turned into gloom. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He will exalt you. Well, let me begin by saying this. This is not a lesson on how to be passive. It's not a lesson about dodging all forms of personal differences, because that type of a lesson would be futile. There's absolutely no way that we're going to agree on everything. It's about learning how to head off fights and arguments before they break out. Now, I want us to begin by seeing both the cause of these kinds of arguments and the cure for them. Let's start with what is the cause of conflicts. What's the cause of these fights and arguments that we have in life? Well, James doesn't beat around the bush at all. He gets right to the point. He doesn't waste any time. Long before psychology came along, James had some profound insights on the cause of human conflict. Verse 1, what is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is not the source your pleasures that wage war with your members? In other words, what creates fights? When what I want is in conflict with what you want, we are going to fight. That's what he said. This is long before psychology. When what I want comes into conflict with what you want, we're going to fight. You know, this happens very early in life. This is not something that comes along once we become adults and it becomes evident that we're going to fight and argue. It's a natural thing. You ever seen a baby? A baby that is hungry and screaming for a bottle. I'll never forget when we first adopted Josiah. We were in the hospital when he was born. My wife helped cut that umbilical cord. We had him as a newborn, and he, like any other baby, would get hungry sometimes, and it was better when we were at the house and it was happening there, but many times out in a public restaurant or a public place, he would start screaming for that bottle. And I mean, normally it's not a big deal, but when you are not really prepared for it and you're fumbling through the diaper bag, and especially when you have to do formulas and there's mixing of the bottle and there's doing all these things, I mean, and he's screaming to the top of his lungs and people are beginning to look at you and you're fumbling. It's like you're trying to find a fire extinguisher to put a fire out. It's like you're just trying to find anything to plug his mouth to stop him from screaming. He is screaming because he has a want. He wants something, and he wants it now. You see, our wants can be very bad at times if they're out of control. If our wants get out of control, what we want it right now. We want it this second. When our wants get out of control, it can be a very destructive and bad thing. The Bible makes it clear in many, many places that there are three basic desires that we have that when they're out of control can cause conflict. Now, all of these desires are legitimate. All of them are legitimate. God gave us these desires. But when they're out of control, they're a very dangerous thing. The first one is the desire to have. That's a natural desire. Sometimes we desire to have certain things. Well, that's natural. It's something God put in us, the desire to have. It says in James 4:2, you want something, but you don't get it. You see, God created the desire to have, and that's a normal, healthy desire unless it gets out of control. One author says we are called to enjoy things and love people, not enjoy people and love things. Sometimes our desire to have certain things gets out of control, and it creates huge problems in our life. We, like the little baby, screaming, demanding, I want what I want, and I want it right now. Sometimes that kind of an attitude that we see in a little infant can be seen in full-grown adults who want what they want, and they don't care what price they have to pay or anybody else has to pay. They want it right now. We must keep our priorities and our desires in balance. So the first desire is that desire to want. It's a natural desire, but we've got to keep it under control. The second is the desire to feel. Philippians 1 verse 7, Paul's writing to some people, and he says, it's right for me to feel this way about you because I have you in my heart. But once again, feelings are normal. Feelings are normal if we keep them in check. But when our desires to feel get out of control, it creates problems for us. People who want to feel good, I want to feel good, and therefore they may take substances or other things to make them feel good. When your desire to feel, I want to feel a certain way, when you get those desires to feel and you're willing to pay any price and make your family pay any kind of price to get whatever it takes to make you feel the way you want to feel, that can be a desire that gets out of control. And then, of course, the third is the desire to be. Frank Sinatra summarized this kind of out of control thing. He said, I did it my way. I did it my way. And we are living in a me generation. Bad desires can be very dangerous. Psalm 10 verses 3-5 says, he boasts of the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked does not seek God, and in all of his thoughts, there is no room for him at all. You know, what is a word that describes a life when all these desires to have and feel and be are out of control and out of balance? What would be a word that would describe these desires to have and feel and be when it's out of control? I would suggest that that would be called a life of pride. The life of pride. That's how we would describe a life that is out of control. And here's what it says in Romans about such a life. Romans 1 verses 18 to 25, and we'll close here today. The wrath of God is being revealed against heaven, against all forms of ungodliness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God has been made plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood by what has been made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God, nor gave thanks to him. But in their thinking it became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal men and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over to sinful desires of their heart, to sexual impurity, to the degrading of their bodies with one another. And they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and they worshipped and served creatures rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. A life of pride is when those desires to have and to be and to feel get out of control, and we are willing to do anything in the world to feel and to have and to be what we want to be. That is the cause of real conflict. We're going to start tomorrow with talking about the cure for this issue. Father, I pray that you'll bless the time that we've had today. Open up our hearts tomorrow to receive what you have for us. In the name of Jesus, we pray it. Amen and amen. God bless you. Thank you for joining us today.